This is another iRaw podcast. We podcast to make the world a better place for animals.
Dr. Siobhan O'Sullivan does like knowing animals. Dr. Siobhan O'Sullivan does like knowing animals.
Hey people, welcome to Knowing Animals. Knowing Animals is a podcast where we speak to animal studies scholars about a piece of their work. I'm Siobhan O'Sullivan and I do like knowing animals. Now this episode of Knowing Animals is brought to you by the wonderful people at ASA. ASA is the Australasian Animal Studies Association, AASA. ASA does a lot of fantastic things. One of the things it does is it organises a conference every 2 years. Of course, during these difficult times, it's not clear if our next conference can go ahead, but we certainly hope so. But even in between conferences, there's a lot happening at ASA. There's a regular newsletter, there's a very active Facebook page, there's a lot of notifications of opportunities, call for papers, that kind of thing. So you should really get involved with ASA, the Australasian Animal Studies Association. Now, this episode is also brought to you by the wonderful people at Animal Publics. Animal Publics is part of Sydney University Press, and it is a section within Sydney University Press where the focus is very much on animal studies books. So Sydney University Press in and of itself is a very good press, but to have this specialist curated focus on animal studies, I think is really something very special. I just saw a new book is about to come out called Meatsplaining, which I think would be really interesting. So they're always adding titles over at Animal Publics, and if you've not checked them out yet, you should do so. Okay, well, let's get down to business. This is another episode that is being recorded during the time of coronavirus. So it means that unfortunately I can't meet with our guest face to face, but I have met with this person quite a few times at wonderful conferences. But it also means that, again, it opens up the world to me. I can interview people who, it might have been a few years till I was going to run into them again. Okay, so this week we're joined by Hazuki Kajiwara. Hazuki has a PhD in sociology and is a lecturer and researcher at Rikkyo University in Japan. Today we're going to discuss Hazuki's new book, Surviving with Companion Animals in Japan, Life After a Tsunami and Nuclear Disaster. And the book is published by Palgrave Macmillan. It just came out, the English version, in 2020. Welcome to the podcast, Hazuki.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to the podcast. Now, Tokyo and all of Japan are in second wave of COVID-19, but it is amazing to talk with you like this. Yes, thank you
It's fantastic that we have this technology, isn't it? So, Hazuki, can you start us off by telling us what inspired you to write this book?
Okay. This book came from the experience of the 2011 tsunami in Japan. In March 2011, Japan's Tohoku region experienced a large earthquake and tsunami and nuclear disaster, as you know. In that time, I felt I want to do something. And at first, I think I just go there and pick up one cat or one dog for rescue their life. But after that, but is it enough? I asked for myself, and I was freelance journalist. So, but the huge disaster overwhelmed me, and I didn't know how I can write about this catastrophe. And so I decided to back to school, and I studied sociology, and I studied my doctoral research.
Wonderful. So, Hazuki, there's a lot of it's a wonderful book. There's so much in it. One of the things that it deals with is, of course, the relationship between humans and companion animals in Japan.
Oh,
Can you, for the listeners who maybe haven't been to Japan or don't know too much about Japan, can you tell us a little bit about, how you think about companion animal issues in Japan at the moment?
okay. Today, 34 or 35% of Japanese households keep some kind of companion animals, mostly dogs and cats. Based on the survey of Japan Pet Food Association, estimated that the number of dogs in Japan was approximately 8.8 million last year, and for cats, 9.8 million. And the practice of pet keeping in Japan, modern style, since mid of 1990s, and it continued to grow as part of much more extensive global phenomenon. The number of animals themselves has been flat for the last few years, but owners are spending more money for animals. But however, it should be emphasized that there are several paradoxes in Japan. Market size of the pet industry include pet shops, sales, living animal and puppy or cat meals is around 1.5 trillion yen. Maybe it's 20 billion Australian dollars. Indeed, a lot of dogs and cats are killed with carbon dioxide gas in Japan. The lost or abandoned pets or ownerless dogs and cats are taken to animal control centers. Only a few animals are returned to their owner, and some are adopted into a new family. But last year, some research revealed 50% owner didn't know what is animal shelter. So they don't know where and what. So people just go to pet shop to buy cat and dogs.
Right. So they're popular, but perhaps it's not the most ethical way in which they're being treated all the time.
Yes.
So in your book, there's a particular focus, of course, in the tragedies around the tsunami and the nuclear disaster. For listeners who maybe didn't realize what happened, can you tell us a little bit about what happened in that case?
At first, some people take their pets to go to shelter, but the shelter refused exclude animals. So the guardians have to live in the car with their pet 3 months or 4 months until they move to temporary housing. And some temporary housing have no pets rule. So many people struggled to maintain their relationship with their companion animals. That's huge tragedy. And also in Fukushima Prefecture and Japanese government forced to animal left behind. So people have to left their animals, but some owners get into a dangerous zone to rescue their animals.
Wow. So there was a mixed response. Some people went to a great length to protect their animal and look after their animal, but the systems in place made it very difficult, it sounds like, because finding accommodation with a companion animal was tricky. So can you tell us a little bit about the research you did for this book? How did you do the research?
At first, I go to the region, Tohoku region, where hit by tsunami, and find interviewees, and my data collected from 25 field trips to Fukushima and other areas hit by tsunami, the March 2011, and interviews were conducted with 53 guardians and other individuals, such as animal rescue activists or veterinaries. And the interviews were further supplemented by a questionnaire survey completed 74 guardians from Fukushima area, like that. And
Wow.
critical realism framework that's developed by Roy Basker, a British philosopher. And
So a lot of work went into the data collection.
yes, it takes 4 years or 5 years. And
Wow.
at first, I think I have risk to go to Fukushima. But I talked with my husband, and I was late of my 40s, so we don't have children anymore. So I decided I can go there.
Wonderful. So what did you discover? What did you find out by all these interviews and all the research you did?
My research question was, how did guardians and their companion animals survive this large disaster? That is number one. And why was the relationship between guardians and their companion animals ignored during and after disaster? And after that, I explore what structure or mechanisms shaped the outcomes for animals and their guardians. And I explored at first the guardian stories. In particular, I described a life story in detail by depth interview of the two guardians who survived the tsunami and nuclear disaster. These are heartbreaking chapters. Their experience is so hard, and but that made my study very unique, I think. And after that, I outline for characterizing behavior for survive, which the guardians can be grouped. For example, confronting the system, making alternative arrangement, returning to a destroyed residence, and suffering in the silence. People, whatever they did, they prioritize companion animals at their more than their own quality of life. And the behavior of the guardians in Fukushima was more complex because they go around from radioactivity. So more difficult to escape.
Yes. Well, it sounds like what you documented was a great deal of love between the human and the animal, the non-human. Do you
Yeah.
think that have you noticed that there has been some changes to the rules or the way evacuations are organised to facilitate people bringing their pets, or has that not changed?
Yes. The government to sometime renew the policy after the 2011, but we have a lot earthquake and flood in recently, but nothing changed. Before last year, we have flood near Tokyo area, but people can't bring to refugee their pet. That's
Well, that's a shame. But look, it's a really fabulous book. It's really fascinating. It's a wonderful insight into human, non-human animal relationships. And it's also a really interesting insight into disasters. And I fear that with global warming, climate change, we're going to have more of them in the future. So I really encourage listeners to either think about buying a copy for themselves, or if they're not in a position to do that, they should order one for their university library or even their local library. So I ask everyone who comes on the podcast to answer 5 quick questions. Are you ready for your 5 quick questions?
yes, sure.
Can you recall the first piece of pro-animal scholarship you ever read?
I think a series of works by Peter Singer.
Right.
But that is about 20 years ago. And I didn't think I could write anything in this area for myself. And some sociologists more directly influenced to me, to my research. For example, the writing of such as Animal and Sociology by Kay Pegg and Animal and Society by Margot de Mello.
Nice. Yeah.
These books,
wonderful theorists.
yes, these books have helped me connect sociology with animal studies. And
Fantastic.
yes, I can name more other my favorite sociologists, such as Leslie Irvine, Erica Cudworth, but it will probably run out of time, so go next.
So, can you recall the first piece of pro-animal scholarship you ever wrote?
Yes, that's sure pretty recent. I wrote in Humanimalia. The title is Human-Animal Interaction in Post-Tsunami Japan. That is part of my book. And you can download this paper from Humanimalia website or my academia edu.
Wonderful. So, Hazuki, if you had to name one animal studies scholar who's had a big impact on you, who would it be?
It's difficult, but definitely Leslie Irvine. She's my rock star in choosing themes, field research, talented writing, academic leadership, and so on. And when I was writing my master thesis, I wanted to like her. I wanted to write. So I carried her book around for 20 hours, even in the bathroom. Yeah. My dog always eat first homeless people and their animals. That is her book. It's wonderful. And she also the editor of the series Animal and Social Problems, of which my new book is a part.
And have you met her?
Yes, one time in Mexico.
Ah,
Yes, that at the conference of Minding Animals. That was
yeah.
wonderful experience for me, and the conference is so incredible.
Yes, and that's where we met as well. One of the places
Yes.
we met, yeah. So, Hazuki, what's the most important thing academics can do for animals?
I think it is continuous effort to go beyond the hard line between human and other animals that clearly exist in the academic and practice world. And therefore, the crucial task for us is to change to human centrism as well as to deconstruct it. As sometimes Margot de Mello says that. And for such aspect, the last year ACER conference, Decolonizing Animals in New Zealand, was so wonderful.
It was. It was
Yes.
amazing.
In addition, as one of the few Asian pro animal sociologists, I am always aware of this task.
Yes. Yes, it was a fantastic conference. And I see that Annie is one of the people, Annie Potts endorsed your book, which is lovely.
Yes.
So, if you had the power to change one thing about the human non-human animal relationship, what would it be?
It's very interesting and difficult question. Yeah. If I'm a god, I would like eliminate disaster, include COVID-19. Well, though I am not believing God, but in regard the human non-human animal relationship, as I wrote in the conclusion of my new book, I would like to give some kind of rights. I call it bonding rights to the guardian and companion animals.
Yeah.
The bonding rights, yes, in my book I described as the right of the guardian and companion animal to stay together. And if given such right, human and animal once partnered could not be forced apart, even if the situation of one or both were to change the significantly, the situation changed. But I would love to talk about this concept in more details if there is an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue into my next question, which is what are you working on next?
Oh, thank you for asking. It could be said most enjoyable task that planning next project and thinking about the structure of study. The realistic task is to write an article for journal. I am the director of the self-help group for pet loss grief in Japan. So I intend qualitative analyze the data of pet loss hotline. We have 1,400 callers data. But now I am exploring more big goal. Maybe it's about disaster and animals. COVID-19 is probably a biggest disaster we are experiencing. So as a sociologist, I think I should definitely study what's the human and non-human animal relationship is like in the post-corona world.
Fabulous. Sounds like a fantastic project. So, how can people find out more about your work?
Yes, you can find about my work on Academia EDU or Facebook. Also, I have official website, although it doesn't have much English content yet, but I'm working on to add more English pages.
Oh, good. Wonderful. So if people just put your name into Google?
Yes, you can find my website
Lovely.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy talk to you.
Thank you. And thank you to the listeners for joining us for Knowing Animals, a podcast where we talk to animal study scholars about their work. And we're also online. We're at Twitter at knowing_animals. We've got a Knowing Animals Facebook account and Instagram account. And finally, don't forget to leave a review. Reviews make it easier for other people to find us. I'm Siobhan O'Sullivan, and I do like knowing animals. For more great iRaw podcasts, visit irawpod.com. That's IROARPOD.com.